All right, welcome everyone. Let's begin with the prayer as we usually do, and then we will go onward. O heavenly King, Comforter, Spirit of Truth, who art everywhere present and fillest all things, treasury of good things and giver of life, come and dwell in us and cleanse us of all impurity and save our souls, O good one. Okay, well, we have a wide swath of America here with us tonight, and God willing, more people will join us as we go on. And people will see this, of course, also afterwards. If you see this afterwards and you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, please put it in the comments section below the video. We'll begin today with kind of some sad news, not necessarily for those who are on, because they probably didn't know the bishop who passed away in Moscow today, Bishop Antoni, who was the head of the Serbian representation in Moscow. But he was a really close friend of Archbishop Peter, and I would say even a friend of mine, maybe not as close as Archbishop Peter, but yeah, he was a young man, only 54 years old, and he ever since COVID, he never really fully recovered. He had some heart problems, and it looks like that's what took him. Very, very, very talented man. Spoke perfect Russian. He was a Serb, of course, as he was a Serbian bishop who was there in Moscow to represent the Serbian Church, and of course, the Serbs are some of our closest friends in the Orthodox world. So Archbishop Peter is scrambling and trying to get to Moscow, and I hope he'll be able to do that, to be able to be there for the funeral, which is on Thursday. So if you can remember Bishop Anthony in your prayers, I know Archbishop Peter would be very thankful for that. Whenever we would visit Moscow, Bishop Antoni would always provide us incredible hospitality. We were allowed to stay at the Serbian representation church, and he was a very kind, good host, just a wonderful, wonderful person. So it's a really, the English have this saying that our loss is heaven's gain, and I think that's really true in this case. So I just wanted to make note of that, his passing, and ask your prayers for the newly opposed Bishop Antoni. We're in the Cheese Fair week now. Yesterday was the last day that we ate meat before Great Lent, and of course the idea is that this week previous was to sort of get rid of all the meat that's in the house. And then this week that we are celebrating this week, the Cheese Fair week, is to get rid of all the meat, the dairy products and eggs and so on and so forth, so that by the time we get to a week from today, which is the first day of Great Lent, then none of these things are left in the house. Now, practically, does that really happen? Probably not. Do people go out and buy dairy products and eggs and things like that for this week? Probably. But the point that it's good for us at least to know what's the standard. And so that's the idea, is that we kind of get through these things and they're not around in the house when we begin our Great Lenten journey. So this is a special week for us. We're allowed to eat all foods except for meat, even on Wednesday and Friday. And then we begin with our strict Great Lenten fasting, as I said, a week from today on the Monday. This is a week because our diet is different, and because, if we're honest about it, often, our stomachs control a lot of our lives. Since we're eating different foods, it often makes us think about Great Lent, and I'm sure that's one of the reasons that this week exists as well. So that we'll begin to prepare ourselves and think about what it is that we want to accomplish and how we hope to accomplish these things during Great Lent, and that's good. And I think it's very important that we take some time this week and consider what it is that we would like to accomplish. Okay, to follow the fast, yes, but ideally we're going to try to do fewer worldly entertainments, to participate in fewer worldly entertainments, hopefully be in church more often, read more spiritual books than we otherwise would, so on and so forth. But I think that the big temptation for us is to decide, okay, like, I'm going to do all that stuff, and I'm going to do it like 800 times more than I do in the rest of my life. And that's a really good prescription for failure, to say, well, I just won't eat for the first week. Yes, the saints did that. Hypothetically, is it possible? I suppose, but it's just not practical. We need to take upon ourselves a struggle which is executable, because if you are given a medicine by the doctor and you don't take it, doesn't matter how good the medicine is, it's not helping you at all, right? So if you refuse to take the best medicine for some reason, but you'll take something which is just not quite as good, but still has some benefits, well, then it's good to take that if you're willing to do that. So we need to do something. We need to have a plan which is executable, and follow that plan. And so I think it's very good for us to think about that and pray about that, to read, to consider, and to have something just a little bit extra that we'll do in our prayer life every day. One book that we're working on that we plan to finish during Great Lent. We're not going to do hundreds of hours more spiritual work every week of Great Lent. It's just not going to happen. And sometimes people have this really weird approach to it, like, okay, I'm going to say prayers for 8 hours a day, and and then I'm going to be in church for 8 hours a day, and I'm going to sleep for 8 hours a day, or maybe I'm going to sleep for 4 hours a day, or it's people take on unreasonable and just ridiculous crosses upon themselves that are not going to be any help, because it's like the medicine that is really good for you that you don't take. Maybe you'll take a taste of it, but by the time the first week is over, and probably even before that, you'll have given it all up. So talk to me, or talk to your priest that you are close to, and make a plan for Great Lent so that it's spiritually profitable. We should talk about the first week a little bit, I think. The first week of Great Lent is generally a week that we spend a lot of time in church. Now, we don't get the week off in our Western society for the first week of Great Lent. I don't think they do in Greece or Russia or anywhere else either. So it's not that we can go to every service, but it's good for us to know what's going on, and so that we can participate in some. So I would say that our parish probably has a pretty standard practice for the first week of Great Lent, like kind of what you would expect a parish to have. Every morning we have matins and hours, and then in the evening we have the Great Compline with the reading of the penitential canon of St. Andrew of Crete. And that is, at least in the Russian church, that's sort of a standard first week. A Wednesday morning and Friday morning we'll have pre-sanctified liturgy, and then Saturday morning is Theodore Saturday, and that's generally a day when most people strive to go partake of Holy Communion if possible, or that first Sunday, the first Saturday or first Sunday, or both. The idea is to be in church as much as we reasonably can that first week, to partake of Holy Communion that first weekend, and in this way, having made a real effort and made a good beginning to Great Lent, to carry that momentum forward. So yeah, not everybody will be at every service, and that's understood. We'll be broadcasting at least the evening services. I hope the morning services. Actually, I need to make a note about that to make sure that that is set up on our stream. But for sure, the evening services. But I actually think that streaming the morning services is even maybe a little bit more important, because you could listen while you're at work or while you're at home, whereas lots of folks will make it to at least some of the first week evening services, stream morning services first week. So I'll ask Father Dimitri to get that set up. Okay, good. So that's kind of what I had hoped to talk about a little bit. And then there was a submitted question. I had glasses. There was a submitted question, so let me read that, and then we'll open the floor to other questions. In the morning prayers, we say, "And grant us to pass through the night of the whole present life with watchful heart and sober thought." Okay, so I'll just keep reading. "I think of the criticisms I have heard, the fire and brimstone, the omniscient and critical God, etc., hesitant to experience this life's joys too brazenly. My question is, what attitude should we carry as Orthodox Christians? How can we attract people to our faith if we are always sober in thought and have a fearful, watching heart?" So that's a good question. It's a good question. And I think that what we have to strive for as Orthodox Christians is that joyful sobriety. And I know that sounds weird. Like, sobriety means not joyful in some in some people's thoughts, right? Those things are connected. But I would argue that, in fact, to be watchful and sober, we should also be joyful at the same time. We should be thankful that we have the opportunity to not just jump at every thought that comes to us, but be careful about the thoughts that we accept, and to reject those thoughts which are not appropriate. The idea of that prayer is that we would be careful with our thoughts. Not that we wouldn't be joyful, not that we wouldn't be um, happy, um, but that we would be careful about the thoughts that we accept and the ones that we don't accept. And that's what this watchfulness and sobriety are about. So we should be joyfully sober and joyfully watchful. And I think it helps us when we are focusing on the resurrection, because as people of the resurrection, how can we not have joy if we are the disciples of the resurrected Christ and understand that we will also be resurrected ourselves. So I'm not saying that that's easy, and it's not. Sometimes we have to struggle with that, but I don't think like we should not take the sort of Old Testament motif or sort of thought process or worldview of the vengeful God who is just waiting for us to step outside the line so he can slap us down. Rather, I think we should see God as a parent who wants to see us succeed, just as every parent wants to see their child succeed. But a lot of succeeding for us is about not being gullible, about being wise, not being unwise, and being watchful and sober is about being wise. So anyway, I hope that's helpful for the person who submitted that, and I'm more than happy to talk about that or anything else. We'll open up the floor to questions now for anyone who would like to ask a question. You can either press the raise your hand button, which is at the bottom of your screen. If you're on a phone, I can't help you. I'm not sure where that is, but it's on the bottom of your screen if you're on the computer, or you can just unmute yourself and ask a question. Okay, I see that the Marble household is asking a question or would like to ask a question. Please go ahead. I think you're going to have to get a little closer to the microphone, Jackie. I can tell that you're saying something, but I can't hear what it is.
Okay, hang on. Let me see. I'm on, and it's not. Okay, can you hear me?
There.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, much better. Okay. Much better.
Okay, so you were talking earlier about the first week of Lent and how there's going to be a great compline, right? Is that Monday through Thursday?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the general. Go ahead.
So we don't have, we're not going to have a priest. What do we call that if we're just having a reader do that?
I'd call it exactly the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, the great compline with the penitential canon of St. Andrew of Crete. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Great. That was my
It's actually, honestly, having a priest there is like that's one of those services that the clergy are maximally not involved in. Like there's a little lectenia at the very end of the whole thing. Of course, the priest begins it, but that's about it. Like it is a reader service almost entirely. It's one of those services that was traditionally done not in the church proper, so not in the nave, but in the narthex. So not that matters, but those tend to be more reader services, whereas the services that are done in the nave, like Vespers, Matins, Divine Liturgy, those have a lot more of a clergy component to them.
Okay. And then what could you type the full name of what you said? Great compline, and then you said something about St. Andrew, I think.
Yep, I'm going to type it out right now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Compline with the reading of the show canon of St. There we go. I just put it in the messages. Excuse me.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And on the for those who are great lovers of the penitential canon, and it is beautiful. It is a beautiful, beautiful canon and very long. For those who love that, we'll read the entire thing on the 5th Wednesday of Great Lent. So this first week we read it over the course of 4 days, but on the 5th Wednesday evening of Great Lent, we read the entire canon plus the life of Saint Mary of Egypt. Very interesting. The life of Saint Mary of Egypt is the only life of a saint which is required to be read in the church during the service. So that should tell us that probably that's one of those lives we should become familiar with. So just a little something to think about. And the life is not long, but it's not short, and it might be something good to work on after the first week to kind of get ready for that fifth week. Very long, but very, very beautiful service. Very good. Does anyone else have a question that they would like to ask or comment that they'd like to make? We will be putting some great Lenten recipes on the website, so please keep an eye on that. I would have to say, from a practical point of view, to be successful in Great Lent, you need to have a diversity of foods that you eat. You could hypothetically survive on peanut butter and jelly. It's possible, but I mean physically. I mean, I'm sure it's psychologically possible. So having a diversity of things that you can try, that you can eat, is helpful. And we don't think quite so much about the fact that we're not using meat and dairy products when we're having a diversity of things. And that experimentation can be also fun. And by trial and error, we'll figure out what it is that we like and what it is that we do not like. Good. Other questions that folks would like to ask tonight? Oh, good. Yeah, Marples have a question, please.
Sorry, I was letting other people have the opportunity.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
I had a question about Vespers. Is it typical that you do a ninth hour before Vespers?
Is it typical in a parish setting? I would say it's not typical, but I would also say there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's ninth hour is the orphaned service of parish life. We do generally Vespers, Matins, first hour, third hour, sixth hour liturgy, but ninth hour almost never gets done. So I know that when we do only Vespers in our parish, we do often add ninth hour to the beginning of that. Right, but if we're doing Vespers and Matins and first hour, we generally don't add the ninth hour before Vespers.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's a good question. Just thinking about something. Well, it must not have been important. Oh, I wanted to mention about annual meeting we had yesterday. Even though it's not a ton of people on it, I want to thank everybody for a really good annual meeting. I thought it was very interesting, good for us. Lots of good, positive things happening in the parish. Thank God. So we'll hope that this is going to continue. And for those who weren't there, Linda was not there. We want to let people know that we turned in our paperwork to the township for the new church. So God willing, probably around June or July, we'll have all of our permits approved, and maybe on St. Vladimir's Day, we'll actually begin the work. So thank God for that. And there's still a lot to do with the school, though. We need to finish the school by June 1st so that we can get all of our permits and get in there to be able to teach kids beginning September 1st. Although September 14th is the beginning of school, but still, we're shooting for September 1st. But that's very positive. We had a very positive work day on Saturday. We primed the entire school, like everything, every single wall, every single painted surface was primed on Saturday. So there were a bunch of people and a lot of really good work that was done. So anyway, there's lots of positive stuff there. So question, my wife is concerned that I won't get enough protein, which will create havoc with blood sugar level. I think that's a real issue. Like, so we want to fast as reasonably strictly as we can. For some people, plant protein, no problem, works great. For other people, not at all. So it really depends, I think, on you. But what I usually suggest to folks is that any fasting is better than none, right? So even if we can't, for whatever reason, maybe it's our family situation or whatever reason it is, or health as we get older, maybe we can't fast strictly. You know, maybe we even have to have some meat during Great Lent, but we should try to fast as strictly as we can. So, if because of health reasons we have to break the fast, well, maybe we could fast on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, strictly, and then on other days, if we have to have something because of health reasons, then we would eat then. But to sort of challenge ourselves a little bit and push ourselves a little bit. So, and that's often the way that we begin fasting too. When someone is beginning to fast, we generally don't say, hey, just try to do all of it. Just like don't eat any meat or dairy products for these next 60 days, essentially. We usually will start people by saying, okay, can you give up meat on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday? Okay, let's do that. Let's make that the fast for this one. And then for the next one, we'll give up meat for the rest. And no ice cream during the fast. So like things like that where we're doing more than we were, but we're not setting ourselves up for failure. It's really important. So I think that we have to find that happy medium for each of us. But the key is to do the best that we can, based on the reality of our situation. And for some folks, it's easy to fast. Honestly, I mean, we should just be honest about that. For some people, it's easy. For some people, it's incredibly hard. And it doesn't mean that for the people it's easy, like those are better people. No, probably, since the Lord knows our hearts, maybe for the people that it's easy to fast, it's not that big of a deal in the Lord's eyes. But for those who really struggle, if they're able to fast through that great struggle, or maybe not quite fast as strictly as somebody else, but nonetheless, it's still very beneficial to them spiritually. So I think the key is talk to your priest and work out the details. And if we're doing this thing in obedience, even if it's fasting just a little bit more than we normally would, then that's going to be something that's pleasing to God. So how many students do we hope to have when we open the school? So we'll have pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, first and second grade. So ideally, we'd have 8 students in each one of those, so 24, 25, something like that. If we can do that, we're golden. I mean, it's not only a great use of the school, and we get to have a lot of students be in the school, but it also makes it very financially stable. So those two things would be ideal. We understand that's probably not going to happen the first year, so we've set up all of our financials to work off of a 75% capacity, and God willing, that will make it. If we do that, we're still going to be fine. We get down to like 50%, we're going to struggle a little bit, but with God's help, I think we'll be fine. Good question. Other questions that folks have? More, Linda. Okay. Linda says, is a collagen supplement and a teaspoon of cod liver taken for medicinal purposes? I think that's reasonable. That seems very reasonable to me. Yeah. So I don't know. The collagen might have some little bit of animal product in it. I mean, I don't think we should ignore the fast. We should fast, but I also don't think we should get like hyper focused on, if the last list of the ingredients says, this may be made in a facility that also has milk made in it. Like, okay, we as Orthodox Christians, we are trying to be strict. We're trying to live a life according to the gospel. We're trying to follow Christ, and the church was given to us for our salvation. But we don't want to miss the forest for the trees, right? We live during the time of the law of love, not the cold law of Moses. And so, what's important is, where is our heart? What are we trying to do? And if we're trying to struggle during the fast to prepare ourselves for Pascha, because that's the whole point. It's not the point of fasting. It's to prepare ourselves for the Lord's resurrection. Then I think we're in good shape. So that's a good question. And then Linda, that sounds eminently reasonable to me. Good questions. Any other questions that folks have? We're getting to the bottom of the hour. Not that I'm telling you we're going to stop. We're going to keep on going as long as you have questions to ask. So if you have questions, please raise your hand or type them in the messages. We've been using messages a lot tonight, and that's cool. happy to continue to do that. Or you can unmute yourself and speak. All right. Well, I don't know about anybody else, but the time change really slapped me down this year. I don't, maybe because I'm getting older, I'm not sure. Usually I just kind of blast right through that, but boy, it was not easy this year. And so I'm kind of whipped. So um, I'm gonna say we'll answer more questions if there are questions, and if not, we'll probably say goodnight so I can grab a bite and maybe get some sleep. So any other questions? Going once, twice, three times. There we go. Okay. Daryl said, did I hear a reference to a scholarship fund to help those that can't make the tuition? Yes. So our ball that we had a couple of Fridays ago, whenever it was the Fast Free Friday, our goal was to make $10,000 for scholarships, and we went just over that. So thank God it was like $10,025. So that's really exciting. We want the school to be for everyone. We don't want it to just be a place where only students can go there that can afford the tuition. Although the tuition, we're very happy about the fact that we've been able to really hammer the financials and get it down to $500 per month as a standard. Nonetheless, there's still going to be families that can't afford that, especially if they have a lot of kids. And so the scholarship money is very important. And we're going to continue to raise money for scholarships for that very reason. So that's a good question. Thank you for asking it. Okay, so we'll do that one more time. Any more questions? Going once, twice, three times. Okay, very good to see you all tonight. Glad you could join us. We'll have a prayer now, and then we will say good night. It is truly meet to bless thee, the Theotokos, ever blessed and most blameless, and Mother of our God, more honorable than the cherubim, and beyond compare more glorious than the seraphim, who without corruption gave us birth to God, the Word, the very Theotokos, they do magnify. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank
we
you.
will not have Curious Vlad next Monday, because we'll begin the compline and the reading of the penitential canon of St. Andrew of Crete. So we'll be off for a week, but God willing, we'll be back on the 25th of March, and we hope to see you all then. Good night.